The middle in American politics has just disappeared over the last 2 decades. And the polarization is to the point of dysfunction now in government.
The whole concept of a democratic republic is we work out our differences in the legislative bodies, in the representative bodies, among the elected officials in a thoughtful way rather than through fighting and on the streets. I think in many ways when you hear the strong vitriol and hatred coming from those that are entrenched on either side in today's electorate, it really causes a lot of concern for kind of what the future of our democratic republic is.
Democracy is about finding consensus, finding where we agree, because where we agree is a place where we can begin to build respect. And as we build respect through our consensus and our agreement, then we also respect our differences.
We need leaders to stand up and show, look, there's nothing wrong with talking to everybody and sitting around and trying to get these complex policy decisions resolved with everybody in the room.
St. Augustine once asked, "Do you wish to rise? Begin by descending. Lay first the foundation of humility." Abraham Lincoln spoke of malice toward none and charity for all. And Kennedy said civility is not a sign of weakness. He issued the call, "Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate." It is in this spirit that the Center for the Study of the Presidency and Congress seeks to encourage the leaders of tomorrow to act on the lessons of history, build coalitions to develop effective solutions, and inspire leaders to incorporate civility, inclusiveness, and character into the public discourse.
The Center's been around for over 50 years, and we've always had as one of our key mission sets the promotion of bipartisanship for a more effective federal government. The Center works to bring together people from the policy community, from industry, from academia, and have conversations where we can focus on enlightening the policy process, but also making it easier for people who are elected to work together better. One of the reasons we set up an awards dinner program is to try to recognize those leaders who are doing the right kind of behavior, using civil dialogue, even where they disagree, to find enough common ground to move America forward.
Within this framework, CSPC is proud to present the Publius Award, named for the shared pseudonym used by the authors of the Federalist Papers, to 2 distinguished leaders who have shown a unique ability to bridge the partisan divide: Governor John Kasich of Ohio and Governor John Hickenlooper of Colorado.
It's important when things go right to let Americans know things can go right, that we honor and revere it when things go right, when things are going well. And politicians that bring people together, that are uniters, not divided, need to be recognized a little bit too.
Governors Kasich and Hickenlooper have shown the ability to rise above this notion that one party has all the answers and to really focus on mutual respect, putting forth ideas, having a conversation, and without compromising ideals, looking for areas where we can cooperate enough to move the country forward.
As an 18-year-old freshman at The Ohio State University, young John Kasich had some concerns he would like to discuss with the president. He wrote a letter to Richard Nixon, and a few weeks later was granted an audience in the Oval Office. Only a handful of people know the contents of that letter, but for John Kasich, it was the start of a political career that would take him from the small town of McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, into some of the highest offices in the land. In the coming decades, John Kasich would serve 4 years in the Ohio State Senate, 9 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives, host a nationally recognized television show, work as an investment banker, and serve 2 terms as the Ohio governor. In that time, he gained a reputation for thoughtful, kind, and honest leadership, a man willing to put his country above his party and before his own self-interest. When he was elected to Congress in 1982, John Kasich quickly showed he was unafraid to cross party lines. He worked with Ralph Nader to identify corporate tax loopholes and seemed to oppose as many programs put forth by his fellow Republicans as those proposed by Democrats. As a member of the House Armed Services Committee, he was staunchly pro-defense, but frequently joined with Democrats to oppose wasteful defense spending. As chairman of the House Budget Committee, he introduced a groundbreaking welfare reform bill that was signed into law by President Clinton, and he became the chief architect of the historic Balanced Budget Act, which became law in 1997. In 2010, John Kasich was elected governor of Ohio. He was re-elected in 2014, winning 86 of 88 counties. Through his 2 terms as governor, John Kasich has maintained his commitment to finding bipartisan solutions. He took an independent path to expand Medicaid coverage for Ohio citizens and worked diligently to protect the water quality in Lake Erie. In the wake of 2 high-profile police shootings, Governor Kasich moved swiftly to create the Ohio Collaborative Community Police Advisory Board, which led to key reforms like greater accountability and oversight, and new standards for recruitment, hiring, and training. By working with legislators from both parties, Kasich eliminated an $8 billion shortfall and built the state's rainy day fund from zero to more than $2 billion. At the heart of all his accomplishments is a spirit of optimism based on his abiding faith. He pushes back at the idea that political engagement must be a zero-sum game. He said, "Some say the American dream is over, that we can't recover, that the flame is beginning to flicker. That is wrong. We may have a crisis of spirit, but our strength endures, and our strength comes from pulling together."
John Kasich's unique in politics. He has his base principles, but he recognizes to get things done, you need to work with a wide variety of people.
He's been good at bringing everybody to the table and saying, okay, how do we do this where everybody gives a little and we don't ask one certain group to do it all?
Halfway across the country, John Hickenlooper's political career seemed to spring out of nowhere. He's the first to admit that his background as a geologist and owner of a brew pub was a unique place to start. An observer noted, in business he adopted a philosophy that carried over into other aspects of his life. There is no percentage in making and motivating enemies. In a political world too often defined by hubris and confrontation, John Hickenlooper has been a breath of fresh air. His personality and grace, a model of how to bring people together. After winning election as mayor of Denver in 2003, despite having no previous political experience, he earned the respect of both Democrats and Republicans for streamlining government. He built a new city-state partnership with Republican Governor Bill Owens. He overhauled the city's financial system and preached efficiency and frugality at every turn. He brought all 34 local Denver area mayors together, 2/3 of them Republican, to support a regional light rail system, and developed a broad coalition to build a new city jail after earlier efforts had failed. Within 2 years, Time magazine named him one of the 5 best big city mayors in the country. John Hickenlooper was seen as a unifier, and in 2007 won re-election with 87% of the vote. The New York Times concluded that by the end of his tenure, with an approval rating that had reached as high as 90%, Hickenlooper had enjoyed not so much a sustained political honeymoon, but a round-the-world love boat cruise. Every ounce of that goodwill would be necessary as he assumed the office of Colorado governor in January 2011. He faced a deeply divided state with a more than $1 billion budget shortfall. Through bipartisan efforts and by working closely with business leaders, Governor Hickenlooper helped rebuild the Colorado economy. Today, that annual shortfall has turned into a $1.3 billion budget surplus for 2018. He joined hands to help state Republican leaders with their top issue, transportation funding, and at the same time boosted education funding, a top priority for Colorado's Democrats. Always looking to grow consensus, he said during one recent conflict, "I need to listen a little harder to exactly what their concerns are, and ask them to say it in different ways. Maybe I'm not hearing it right." Today, John Hickenlooper is meeting the stated goal of his administration, itself one part Democrat, one part Republican, to create the most pro-business state government, but with the highest environmental and ethical standards. And as his leadership gains attention on a national stage, Governor Hickenlooper remains loyal to his commitment to work across the aisle by joining hands with another fellow governor, Republican John Kasich, to champion bipartisan solutions to our national health care crisis.
John has really brought together civil society, the business community, Republicans and Democrats to really focus on the big things we need to do in our state. Always taking an independent, thoughtful approach and always being considerate, even to those who oppose whatever it is he's trying to do.
Governor Hickenlooper had to work with Republican legislatures and Democratic legislatures in a very polarized state. But he was able to bring diverse groups together to get things done and was able to bridge that gap.
Our country is facing some major challenges. It requires us to pull together as Americans to overcome them. We can do that with the leadership of people like Governors Kasich and Hickenlooper, but I want for the next generation of leaders to see that there's a good example out there. And the good news is if we do that, we will continue to be very successful as a country.
In a CSPC publication entitled The Grace and Power of Civility, former CEO Dr. David Abshire reminded us civility has often been exercised in the American experience in order to move to the higher common ground. He said if we can listen to each other with humility, the positive, almost sacred qualities of the American experience can enrich and fortify us to live the fullness of the American dream. Such is the type of graceful leadership demonstrated by the 2018 recipients of the Publius Award, Governor John Hickenlooper of Colorado and Governor John Kasich of Ohio.